Hey, this is Derek Murphy. A decade ago, I was a starving artist. I had moved to Taiwan after studying fine art in Florence for a while. I studied philosophy in Malta, of all places. But I moved to Taiwan to kind of focus on my painting career, which was really difficult. And eventually, I decided to not exactly give up, but switch gears and go back to school to get my master's and eventually my PhD. So I spent about 10 years in grad school in Taiwan studying English literature with a mix of English and Chinese. And when I graduated, my wife and I were basically fully independent, traveling full time because I work online, mostly in book cover design or marketing, helping other people to publish and write and edit their book. I became a developmental editor and I worked with hundreds of authors to try to help them polish up their book. And what I found was that most authors made consistent, predictable mistakes when dealing with the craft of writing, telling good stories, whether fiction or nonfiction. And I decided I wanted to become a fiction author myself and use my own cover designs and my book marketing for my own projects rather than being bought out or sold to other people. So what I have started to do after building my platform to about 80,000 followers on my email list, this YouTube channel has about 20,000 followers, which is amazing. I've just been sharing lots and lots of free content because authors need so much help and there's so much scammy advice out there. But the one thing I could never really solve was helping authors actually tell a good story, because even if it has a great cover or a hard launch campaign or a big advertising budget, if you lose readers in the first few pages with not necessarily bad writing, but just missing the crucial ingredients to a good story, then they're never going to finish your book. They're never going to get to the end of your book, which means they're not going to sign up to your email list. They're not going to post any reviews. You're not going to get any word of mouth. So not only is the first few chapters or even pages crucial, but there are usable, predictable, universal rules to writing craft that you can use if you learn how to do it right. And I was really frustrated because I read all the books on craft when I started writing fiction, and I really had a hard time finishing a good book and getting it out there. I've gotten better over the years. I've also learned a lot from critiquing and editing other people's writing, but I've started to notice there are definitely patterns, and I'm giving out the same advice over and over again, which led to a couple of online courses about marketing. And I'm now putting into, this book, which is coming out on my birthday, winter solstice, December 22nd, 2020. So right now this is up on pre-order, Bookcraft. Cut the fluff, keep the magic. I can't read it because the text is backwards, but How to Write Books Readers Love from First Draft to Final Polish. It was really difficult for me to pick a direction for this book because I knew I had a lot of really good things to say, but on the one hand, I have some really in-depth plotting resources because when I tried to plot fiction for the first time, I struggled with the classic hero's journey. I struggled with all the other formulas out there, whether they're save the cat or right from the middle. And the problem with most of them was that they teach you a 3-act structure, but the second act, which is, actually half of the novel, they only give you a couple little touch points and you have no idea what to do for those 20 chapters. So I developed a 9-point plot dot formula, which was kind of a little simple guide that's up on YouTube. And then I went ahead and figured out a 24 chapter step-by-step plotting resource, which has gotten tens of thousands of downloads. People really like it. It's been really useful for people. And that's great because that's a strong start. So on the one hand, Bookcraft is about, and I almost put the subtitle as how to plot your book without killing the magic or something like that, because a lot of people are resistant to structure or plotting and they feel more comfortable being in the flow or what's called pantsing the book. What I recommend in this book and for anybody else in general is that plotting can just help you to structure your writing a little bit so that when you finish it, you'll need less revision and it'll be a stronger book. Not everybody is built for plotting. If it's not for you, that's fine. Although I would say whether you're a pantser or a plotter, there are abilities that you are not using which could help you to increase your craft. As a plotter myself, I know that I need to focus on being more comfortable drafting and getting in the flow and letting that magic happen. But I also really love starting with a strong structure because then I don't get stuck in the middle and wonder, what I need to do to fix it. Which isn't actually true because, of course, when you get in the middle, you're always problem solving step by step. So even if you have a tight plot, you're still discovery writing. That's part of the process. Anyway, part of this book is about plotting. I have plotting resources, but I really broke it down in a new way in this book. And then I realized that wasn't really enough because the other big thing that I always help writers with, and the big red flags or mistakes, the amateur writing mistakes that I see all the time, is difficulty presenting the information. They have a big info dump where they try to fill in all the backstory. It's jumping between present tense action and then all these little asides. A lot of it is show don't tell, which I just made a video about on my YouTube channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'm going to be talking a lot about writing over the next couple months, and there's plenty of content down below about book marketing or building another platform. But like I said, right now I feel like helping people get better at their craft is the most useful thing that I can do with my time. I also have a unique insight because I've been a developmental editor. I've studied over a decade of classic literature, and I am really focused on problem solving with universal rules. Of course, rules aren't going to work all the time, but what I usually get, there was a comment recently on YouTube where I was talking about, the things I talk about, and it said something about how literary fiction is better. There was an implied assumption, which is a common reaction because most authors are trained to assume that literary fiction is better quality and commercial fiction is lower quality. And that's a myth I hope to bust in this book for many reasons, but partly because those people who believe they are writing literary fiction are not actually better writers. And the danger is focusing too much on the prose and the sentence by sentence stuff when they don't actually have a story, when it's not engaging, it's not suspenseful, there's no intrigue, the narrative and characterization is poorly done. They assume they're better quality writers because they're not counting on or even aiming for audience satisfaction. And I would argue the fastest way to become a better writer is to quicken that feedback loop and make sure you're getting real feedback from actual readers. Because if people don't like reading your book, it doesn't matter how good you think it is. It's not going to sell. People aren't going to enjoy it. If people don't enjoy reading your book, you don't deserve to get paid. And the problem is 99% of authors out there are trying to write books that nobody is going to want to read because they don't care about plotting or structure or learning the rules. They're doing it for self-gratification, which is a whole big topic. The nice thing is those few authors who are learning how to write commercial fiction on purpose, and by commercial fiction I just mean books that people will enjoy reading and are willing to pay for. That's all I mean. If you're willing to do that, you can learn how to write better, faster, and earn more money with your books, and also write objectively better quality books. Originally, I was actually going to call this book How to Write Good Books, and the argument was that most people are not writing good books. The vast majority of people who are writing and publishing books are not writing good books because they don't want to, or they haven't learned the craft, or because there's not enough good resources out there. I studied story structure and fiction for a long time, and as a quick aside, this book, Bookcraft, is also going to have a lot of my nonfiction resources that are not in all of my writing courses because there's a bunch of nonfiction stuff that I've only figured out recently that are not in my earlier nonfiction books, which I will employ to some extent in this book to make it stronger, but also teach to other nonfiction writers who want to write stronger, more impactful nonfiction books. So when I talk about fiction and story and whatever, it's true that's going to be the bulk of it. But partly because the nonfiction stuff is a lot easier to learn and to teach. The fiction stuff is a little bit more nuanced and challenging, especially because most authors don't want to hear it. They resist structure or plotting. They resist rules and uniformity. But the value of it, and the main analogy or metaphor that I use in this book, which is also the title, is Bookcraft. So we're focused on the craft, not the art. Doesn't mean the art isn't important. I think I say the art is the why, the craft is the how. You can have both, and they will complement each other. But in those times when the magic isn't showing up, or the muse isn't showing up for you, or the art is difficult, in those times you can turn towards the craft, which is the skill and the rules and the structure and the practice, and you can develop your skill and practice so that you can better be able to communicate the meaningful art. Because no matter what you want to say, if people aren't reading, if they don't keep reading your book because you're not handling the suspense or the intrigue or the information dumps, or the dialogue is boring, or characterization, description, whatever, all those important things, if you're not doing that well, it doesn't matter whatever your art was supposed to be, whatever you think you're telling or sharing to the world, because nobody's paying attention. You have to employ the tricks to get reader engagement so that they keep reading the book. And there are tricks. There are universal rules you can learn whether you're trying to write literary fiction or commercial fiction. Those are the tricks that I've been trying to boil down into bare essentials that I've never seen taught before. So I'm really excited about this book coming out. It'll be on discount on pre-order until the end of the year. Then it's going to go up in price. I'm also going to include a free writing course for people who pre-order the book. So that's the offer, the pitch that I have. I'm going to keep showing you the cover. I made the cover myself. I've been a cover designer for a while. It took me a while to figure out the direction I wanted to go with this cover. And I don't know that I'll really talk. Well, I'll talk a little bit about the decisions I made in the cover. I basically wanted it to look like a legitimate, sophisticated nonfiction book about the craft of writing that would appeal to people who like classic literature, and the danger of talking about commercial fiction. And some of my other stuff I've said, like how to write books that sell, which most authors will tune that out because they think that's about the marketing, and they don't respect the sales or the marketing as much as they should. They don't care. They don't care about selling books. They care about writing a good book. And they completely split that apart. And the problem is they write a book that nobody wants to read, and then they can't sell it or market it or anything. And they could have, whether you've written your book already or you're starting from scratch, the principles I'm going to be teaching in this book will help you. There's also some really advanced revision and editing stuff that will help you to take what you've already got and make it 10 times better. Anyway, so I'm really excited about this book. You can probably tell in my videos, if you're new here, that I'm a little scatterbrained and I get distracted really easily. The other metaphor I was going to mention is, imagine you are rowing a boat. It's not the right metaphor for this book, but imagine you're rowing a boat that has a sail. It's faster and easier to catch the wind in your sail, and it's smooth sailing. But sometimes when there's no wind, you have to row the boat. So if you don't have an oar, or if you don't have a rudder, or if you don't have the navigational tools or whatever that you need, all the wind in the world isn't going to matter unless you harness it well. I might put that in the book, I might not. The main metaphor I was going for with Bookcraft is that there's a difference between the art and the craft of writing. They can work together in tandem, and that it's a little bit like witchcraft. I'm trying to make that comparison between, and because I write young adult fantasy, so I talk a lot about magic and supernatural stuff, but between people who are naturally gifted, who can just, channel the magic, which is great, but it's more powerful, but it's harder to harness and potentially dangerous. Whereas the people who master the skills, which take a lot of time and practice, maybe they're not as gifted magicians, but they can consistently produce remarkable and expected results in a way that people are naturally gifted with the magic can't. So maybe you are a naturally gifted writer, but you can't write a novel because a novel or a book is a long-term effort that depends on a whole bunch of different things and employs a lot of different writing strategies or organizational strategies. And it's also a process that comes from the rough draft to the final polish. There are like 7 different steps in there. And it's very easy to get lost or frustrated or demotivated and not really be able to figure out how to get your book to the finish line and have a really strong, satisfying reading experience for a particular market that they're willing to pay for. So that's why I focus on commercial fiction. I think this will be sort of an MFA in commercial writing versus creative writing, which is another thing I kind of want to play with. At one point I had thought about, making a list of all the stuff I studied when I was doing my PhD in literature and kind of boiling it down to like, if you want an MFA in writing without spending 2 to 10 years in graduate school, not to mention thousands of dollars, these are the recommended readings. These are the tasks or articles that you should write. Someday I might write a book like that, or a course or something, or just a blog post. I don't know. But my point was that there's a lot of other books out on the market that talk about writing, but I don't think there are any that are going to talk about the entire process of writing a good book, help you identify the red flags or the weak amateur writing that's going to make people give up your book too early. Talk about how to actually do things like show, don't tell, how to build the emotional pathos, the drama, especially the conflict and the suspense. That's one that I see so many people doing poorly, where there's just no tension because they're giving away too much information, or there's no conflict because they haven't properly motivated or explained the stakes or the dangers. If you don't have tension and conflict, there's no reason to keep reading your book. Anyway, I'm going to stop this video here. It was meant to be just a really quick introduction, but I did want to have a book or a video talking about this particular book because I didn't have one up previously, I don't think. In the next few months, this doesn't come out until December 2020, and I will be doing a big launch campaign, so I will be talking about how I'm doing book launches. I just put up a video down below about how to get 1,000 pre-orders. I'm up to like 250 or something, so you're welcome to pre-order the book if you want a writing course as a bonus, and if you want to get it for half price, which is the current deal. But you should also subscribe to see not only when I'm preparing to launch this book, I'll be making a lot of high-value writing content. As I go through and I'm editing stuff and I'm figuring more stuff out, I'll be making videos about it. I'll also be talking about my book launch and marketing campaign on this YouTube channel, so you can subscribe. And down below, there are a couple of different, playlists on YouTube. You can organize content. So I have been making a playlist just about, I think it's like a 12-step plan to writing bestsellers, which is based on the summer camp I'm doing right now. There's some amazing high-value content in there. And there's also a lot of really in-depth high-value content about book marketing under the Guerrilla Publishing playlist, or some of the other playlists I've set up down below. I'm getting better about expressing these ideas more clearly without rambling for an hour, at least I hope, but maybe that's not entirely true. This is already a 20-minute video. But I also have a lot of books and a lot of free books. In most of the videos down below, you might see a link to sign up on my email list to get a free copy of whatever. I think I have 5 nonfiction books about writing and publishing and book marketing that are available for free and are also up on Amazon. Most of them have about 100 reviews. They're not my best work, but they have helped people and they review well. So I'm hoping this book will be the first book that I'm truly proud of, and I'll be pushing it pretty hard. I also intend to make this a really strong seller so that it's generating income long term, because I want to be spending more time on my fiction. And if you're writing books, you probably know that it's a really long term, you have to focus on one thing for 3 to 6 months at a time. And it's difficult to do that full time if you also don't have a source of income. I've been lucky enough that I've set up multiple sources of passive income, so I can mostly focus on my writing at this point. But I am really excited about this book, which is why I'm going to start to make more videos talking about it. You should go pre-order it. It's going to be awesome. Thanks. Bye-bye.